Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, it's 8 o'clock. That means it's time for Buster's Virtual Jazz Club. I hope you had a great week. The weather's been lovely here in London. A nice sunny day again. So, just to say a big thank you to all my patrons who support me through my Patreon website and subscribe there, and also to everyone who makes a donation on PayPal. It means a hell of a lot and has been a massive help this year particularly, and thank you all for your lovely messages you send me. Don't forget to visit my website, the link is below here, where you can watch all of the past shows and see who my upcoming guests will be. I've just the last couple of days booked up a whole bunch of new guests for the upcoming weeks. Got some very exciting big names on the show coming up. So on to tonight's show. My guest this evening is a multi-instrumentalist and composer that for the last 30 years has been performing, sound engineering, producing, songwriting, arranging and teaching music. As a performer and a session musician, he is best known for playing the guitar and a plethora of exotic instruments, including the balalaika, the domra, the saz and the oud, which we're going to hear some of tonight. He was part of the trio Tertsarima, alongside myself and the very much missed Victor Unakovsky. These days, his regular bands include the Budapest Cafe Orchestra, La Folia, Sultan's Picnic and Twisted Karaoke, and he often works with the balalaika virtuoso Bib Zekel. Recent orchestral performances include Shostakovich's The Nose with the Royal Opera Company, Winter Dreams with the Royal Ballet Company, Howard Moody's opera Agreed at Glyndebourne, and Christian Garrick and Friends with the Brighton Philharmonic. In the studio, he has played on a number of soundtracks, including the films The Silver Skates, Kursk, and Our Kind of Traitor, and for the TV series Catherine the Great, The Sick of It, and The Lost Prince. His notable large-scale compositions include the orchestral suite Travelogue, premiered at Salisbury Arts Centre, and the ballet The Hidden Prince, premiered at the Anvil in Basingstoke. He writes and arranges music for a lot of the bands he plays in and makes production music with various collaborators. He teaches guitar, bass, piano and drums, and is musical director for a Russian folk ensemble called the Imperial Balalaika Orchestra of Overton. And I'm pleased to say he's here with us now, live on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very wonderful Mr. Adrian Zolotuhin. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Hi, Buster. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, mate. Thanks for coming on the show. It's lovely to see you. Thanks for giving up your evening and for coming and sharing your music with us. It's going to be great. We've got a lovely selection for tonight's show, so I'm looking forward to playing all those. Thanks for bringing this all along. But what we like to start with is just a brief. How's it been? It's been nearly a year now of this kind of new world. We're looking at the hopefully the end of it soon. But how have you been keeping yourself busy? I know you're not one to sit idle.
Well, I mean, I'd very much take you as an inspiration, Buster. In that,
stop it.
As far as that's concerned. But I think very quickly, I already had quite a lot of students. I was doing a lot of regular teaching, and very quickly made the decision to go online with them. And luckily, most of them came with me and have stayed with me.
So that's kept you going, yeah.
It's kept me going. It's been nice to do a lot of teaching, and I've got a few sort of composing projects in the background in between teaching, and so I've been working on a production album, a library album.
Okay,
that's library music for the listeners is this secret that professional musicians do, but we don't talk about.
I see. A bit like Fight Club, is it? Sort of,
yeah. The first rule of library music. So
this is just for people that don't know. This isn't music they play in libraries, is it? No, this is music that you write and then you sell through I guess they're an agency, are they? That then license music for adverts and things like that. But I mean,
I think most of my stuff is probably highbrow documentaries and dramas, but yeah, adverts if you like.
Sorry, mate. Well, I guess anyone, they search for music, don't they? Somebody like a TV company who's looking for some tracks would search for some music, and then they'd go to these kind of databases, I guess, where the music's all kind of catalogued, isn't it, by style and things like that. And they can have 30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, but it's all composed, pre-arranged. And you produce everything as well, don't you? You're very clever with it in sound engineering.
And, that's very kind. Yeah.
No, so I mean really. I mean,
in this little bubble here. That's
you're in your happy space. Yeah. So that's great. Well, I'm glad, and also, I saw you recently, you did a live stream as well, didn't you?
Yes.
With Bibs. That was great.
From Sands Films, of all places.
Sands
I don't know if
Films.
you know that.
Well, I've been there today, filming today at the same place, yeah.
So, they were kind enough to ask me and my friend Bibbs Eckel to do a little show for them. So we sort of... well, it's like it's a new world. It's like doing a television show with a very small crew of no people, but some remote cameras dotted around. And
when was it? Because it feels like a few weeks ago, but time is a very strange concept at the moment. Is it probably a few months back?
It was in November, but it could have been October.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I thought it was wonderful. You did a great job. So you played some sort of like traditional Russian folk music and tunes with Bibs, but you were kind of like demonstrating the instruments and kind of educating a little bit about the music as well and the instruments.
Yeah, I think it's between us. Sort of that's a lot of what we do in our general concert shows and whatever bands we're in. If it's a presentation to an audience, there will be a moment or two of, here's this instrument and here's that instrument, because between us, we've got quite a few toys.
Well, they are, and they do look amazing and they sound amazing, but they also look incredible. A lot of these things, I mean, we've known each other a long time, and I'm always amazed at this, that you bring along these. I always look forward to seeing very strange shaped cases, like with really. I think, that's going to be something nice. He falls out of there, but they look amazing. These instruments that you play and bring along, and so I think that's a really great thing that you're showing the audiences, more in explaining a little bit about and kind of demonstrating it, and bringing that culture with it as well. I think that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Bibbs is very hot on that, and he sort of knows a huge amount about Russian culture and the music,
traditional
music,
folk
European,
music,
folk music, gypsy music, everything from that sort of quarter. He's a world expert on, not just in this country, but sort of he's called upon by Hollywood to sort of explain things in various
and you do it in a very entertaining way. I thought it's just and can people see that still? Is that still up somewhere on a website? Can they check that?
I think it is. Yeah, I think I'll let you know.
If you send me the link, I'll put it in the description below, because I do think it's worth checking out, folks. It's a lovely show. But you did it live at the time, but it's up there like we're doing now. So I thought we'd start with you've provided quite a few videos, which is nice, because something you do is you make these YouTube videos as well, don't you? And they're great. And this one we're going to start with is a video which you produced of one of your original tunes that we used to play in the trio. But this is you multi-tracking, because I don't think people really understand how this works. Sometimes it's you playing everything, every instrument, and then just multi-tracking it. Is it you on everything, or have you got some ringers in there? On this next track, yeah.
It is me on everything, yeah.
Everything.
And the process with that one, I think the process was I played. To make it a bit more difficult, a friend of mine, a brilliant guy who's also in the Budapest Cafe Orchestra with me, called Kelly Cantlon, filmed me.
Right.
Creating this, so it's actually what you see on the film isn't miming. It's actually me recording. Actually, some of it's miming, but the first couple of takes is the studio stuff is me actually playing live,
putting it down. Yeah.
On the film. So I think I recorded the first guitar and just layered stuff on the top of it in the case of this one.
That's amazing. Well, let's watch this, and then we can come back on the back of this. And so this is your original composition. It's called Stew My Strings, as it's titled. And this is Adrian on everything. So enjoy this, folks. Here we go. Yeah, that was Stew My Strings by Adrian Zolotuhin, my guest in the house tonight. And yeah, amazing, beautiful, mate. And you're getting all those lovely instruments in there as well. And what a great sound! It's incredible how you put everything together like this. And I'm always amazed at what you always get such a great sound out of all the projects we've ever done. And because that was something else that you studied as a sound engineer, right? Properly.
Yeah, I did a degree in music and sound at University of Surrey with some. Well, everybody else was a lot better at the sound bit than me, as far as I could tell.
No, stop it.
But I ended up coming down the music path more than the sound path since about 2000. So.
Well, there were some very clever and talented people, a whole bunch of you guys at that course as well, wasn't there? I mean, it was a very high level, highly regarded course, wasn't it, that you were on? That Surrey Uni, is that right? The Tom Master. Yeah. And a lot of those engineers have gone on to do lots of famous pop records and things. But I think you've really I mean, it's incredible that you have that level of skill in both worlds, because not many musicians, most musicians now, we all need to sort of know a bit of this stuff, and
Yeah.
like, but
Getting quite good
not
at
like
video engineering now.
and video and codecs and streaming codes and things like this we're all having to learn about now. I never thought I'd have to learn any of this stuff, but the level you're at, mate, it's quite astonishing to be at that level, at such a high level at both of those fields. Normally people do one or the other, don't they? And a lot of sound engineers play a bit of music, and a lot of great musicians do a bit of sound, but I mean, you really are the master.
I think part of the reason, the fact I've kept trying to keep both things going at that level is the reason why this is my first interview, and I'm 50. It's taken me a very long time to sort of get up to the Busters Jazz Club sort of.
Yeah, well, mate, this is it now. We've got merch and everything. This club, this is a classy outfit. We've got hats and cups. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I'll just take this moment to say hello to a few people in the chat box there. We've got a few regular listeners. Hi, Peter Gore is here. Hi, Dave Griffiths. Hope you're doing well. Laurie and Paul. Liz Norton in the house. Hello, Liz. Steve Clark is enjoying a nice Valpolicella this evening, and he's got his Ritz crackers out again. Pete Gibbs, hello mate, nice to see you, good to hear you there. And Barry Holloway in the house.
Without whom?
Who was that? Who was how we met a long time ago through Barry. Lee Stapleton's here. The man's a legend. Yeah.
Hi Lee.
Yeah, so I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about how you got started, and perhaps we could talk a bit about your dad. And I know you're from a very musical family, and then we briefly mentioned Surrey Uni and how you kind of got on from there with the various things you've done. So I mean, you grew up around music, particularly Russian folk music. It's very much in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, well, my dad was a Russian musician. He played an instrument called the domra. Which is oddly, I haven't got one around, but it's about this big, and sort of a bit like a mandolin. And he from the time he arrived in this country in the early '60s, he sort of got together with other like-minded musicians, Russian and English. Eventually, they formed a balalaika ensemble, and so when I was born, this balalaika ensemble was going. They had records out. I think when I was 5, he did a concert in the Albert Hall. I was allowed backstage for the first half.
Amazing.
For some reason, I wasn't allowed to stay for the second half. Maybe I was really badly behaved. I don't know. But that was an early inspiration. So I wanted to do music. I wanted
do you still remember that? Sorry, just give it into.
I remember. I remember being backstage at the Albert Hall.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember seeing the band from the Wings, and also one of the members of the band having a snooze in the green room, sort of lying down on a table to have a. Those are sort of the memories from that. But so I was very inspired, and I wanted to play music. I wanted to play the guitar. I think the person who was having a snooze was the guitarist. So maybe.
Oh, I see.
So my dad, parents thought that was a great idea, so they sent me to piano lessons, and I learned how to play the piano because I was, small hands and all that. And I sort of forgot about the guitar. And
sorry. So how old was that? How old were you then? Was you just very young? Really? So a very early start then? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then I carried on learning the piano and just sort of forgot about the guitar really. And then when I was at secondary school, sort of about 12, 13, 14, some mates and I formed a punk band. So I was the kind of the organist. We might have had a little Bontempi organ and a Casio VL tone. I was a sort of multi-keyboard player with, and we decided we needed a guitarist. So my dad had a guitar lying around the house, and I picked it up and started playing it. So from that point onwards, I decided I was a guitarist.
So it wasn't like formal lessons and things on the guitar. It was just being
I didn't have
at
many
that point.
formal lessons. No.
No, wow, I didn't know that.
So mainly self-taught, but you know, I've sat next to some very amazing guitarists, and sat, you know, just being in the environment, you learn a lot, and sort of the basics of through the piano, the basics were all there as well. So yeah.
So it was kind of it was kind of mapped out to a certain extent. You were conscious of that, you know, as perhaps by the time you was in teens, you're thinking this is probably what I'm going to do, or was it still? So. Did you ever feel like, oh no, sod it, I want to do something else, or was it just you felt like that's?
No, I was single-minded. I thought when I discovered, I sort of got into the technology a little bit, electronic music and recording. Like I borrowed 4 tracks from various people and made little demos with the bands I was in. I had sort of the punk and post-punk bands with sort of my guitar mates, and then I had a electronic band with another great mate of ours, Matt, and so I sort of record all those, and then eventually this sort of the idea that you could do that as a degree and a career, and came onto the radar really. So I heard about this Tom Meister degree you could do. I thought, right, that's the one for me. Right. I'm going to do that. And so I was quite single-minded about that from about the age of 16, and managed to get the grades. And in fact, I didn't even get the grades, but I must have had a good interview. I must have needed a balalaika player.
And of course, you were playing with your dad's band as well. At what point did you sort of start doing that? Or
around about 16. I think actually the very occasion I did a couple of rehearsals with my dad, sort of learned a couple of the basic tunes. And he played with various small groups and duos by that point. And then one day I went for a drive with him. He said, "Oh, we're gonna just drive up here," and then he parked the car, and this was in Richmond, and we got onto this boat, and it was moored in Richmond, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've got a gig. You're going to play with us?"
I can just see your dad doing that.
And it was and that was with Bibbs and a gentleman who's no longer with us called Rick. And my dad and me, and I was handed a bass balalaika, which is for the viewers at home, it's about this big. I know it wasn't a contrabass; it was just a bass. So it was like about a large guitar size. Yeah. I was playing that wrong, you know, for a whole afternoon on a boat in Richmond.
So he hadn't sat you down and sort of said, right, you need to learn these tunes and we're going to go through all this stuff and prepare you. He just drove you to the gig. That's amazing. I could just see your dad doing that. That's really funny. Yeah. But he was actually a real, I mean, he played the domo, you said, but I mean, he was a virtuoso of this. And people may not realize it's this tiny little thing, and he was a big guy, wasn't he? Big hands, and I remember seeing him, and his hands moved so fast, and it was like a blur, and the most incredible sound coming out, and it was a bit like,
it's a great juxtaposition, I think, that my dad and about the smallest instrument you can get. It was rather lovely.
But also, he was quite a central figure in this community of people, wasn't there? And I mean, I know. You won't remember saying from the funeral, I was just an endless stream of people saying how many great things he'd done to help them and how he'd helped them out over the years. And that knocked me out. And there's what struck me, because being invited to come and play with you guys as well from a long time ago now, wasn't it? And I played with your dad's band as well, as we were just talking about earlier. What struck me was this bond. There's this bond of these musicians who've come to this other country, and there was something about the music that made the culture live, and it was deep. It was a deep rooted thing, and there was some very deep friendships there, isn't there? We've talked about on this show before about how those musical relationships can run very deep as well, and there was a little gang, wasn't there, with Bibbs and your dad and Victor as well. Of course, when Victor came, your dad helped out Victor and got him some work, didn't he? And then, and of course, how did you first meet Victor?
I don't know. I think
must have been through your dad. Am I right? Have I just kind of muddled that up somewhere.
My dad was, and I think it might be a big part of the Russian culture, but it seemed to me when I was growing up that people would just sort of hear about my dad and then present themselves at his front door, and say,
Yeah.
"Hi, I'm Janos from Hungary, and I heard you're a nice guy." And my dad would invite them in and feed them and give them vodka, and they'd stay in for a bit, and maybe do a bit of painting, to keep themselves busy. And because I suppose my dad was getting quite established playing this sort of music.
Yeah.
London, people arrive in London from outside, they sort of hear his name and they eventually sort of find him. And so I presume, I don't know for absolute sure, but I presume that was sort of connection with Victor. He sort of heard about Dad, and then they met and had a chat and vodka and food, and then listened to each other playing, and they just got on. They really got on really well.
Yeah, definitely.
And kept the connection, and so my dad said to me, I know this is guitarist Victor, and it'd be nice to meet. So we all sort of met and had a jam, and then Victor, I think at one point, he picked up a guitar and just did stuff. What is this stuff?
He was
stuff you're doing. So my interest was piqued. And even Victor, we got him to come down and do a couple of gigs with us with our scratch bands at university.
Yeah.
And we were everybody on the stage. We didn't really care about the audience in those gigs, but we were all on the stage.
Yeah. What is that? Yeah.
What's this guy doing?
Yeah.
So that was great. And after I finished at university, there was a restaurant gig going, and Victor and I sort of managed to get it, doing it together. So that was kind of, we started doing this regular gig at Zamoyski in a Polish restaurant in Hampstead. And Victor, so I learned a huge amount on the jazz side and the gypsy jazz side. I learned a huge amount from Victor, really, just sort of doing those gigs. We had a few rehearsals, not enough.
I'm sensing a theme here. Is it a Russian approach? Yeah. Just throw you in there. Yeah. Sink or swim. Yeah.
And we had a great time. We played, I suppose, from about 93 until 2000. We were playing there every week almost.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, it was a very tight unit by the time we got you involved and became Terzarima.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were very tight. I mean, when we first played, it just slotted right in, didn't it? And I could hear, I hadn't realised it was quite that many years you'd worked in the duo together, and it was just, you guys just worked together so great, and you could hear it, and well, that brings us on nicely, I think, to the album. So let's play this. Well, this is a little spooky for me because we've been so we had this band with the trio in it with Victor, yourself, and I, and it was great fun, wasn't it? And we did a lot of work, and I remember people sort of saying being quite knocked out of the gigs, but we did actually rehearse a lot, didn't we? We did a lot of playing and rehearsing, and spent a lot of time putting the music together before we did any gigs. I seem to recall there was a lot of just getting together to play, to find stuff. And I think for Victor, it was a bit of a chance for him to express himself a little more and play his own music. We did some covers, and you wrote some tunes as well, which were great. We're going to play one of those in a bit as well. And I felt like he'd spent his life playing a lot of other people's music, and maybe this was a little chance. Did you get that feeling at all from him?
I'd say you're pretty right there. Yeah.
Because he was always keen to get together just to play. It didn't matter if it was a gig. It was just like, let's play, And I think we rehearsed like at least every week, didn't we, for quite a while before we did any gigs. And Which is not so common, amongst musicians, is it? Trying to get rehearsal together. It's not that easy, is it, listen? And so, and then we made the first album, which you engineered brilliantly, as well as playing on beautifully and writing some of the tunes. And do you remember the session?
And that was one of the earliest things. I think almost all the albums I've been involved since then have been in the same method, where we hired a house in the middle of nowhere.
It was an abbey. It was a disused abbey that they'd fixed up, and it was in the middle of a field. We had to carry all that stuff across the field with the cows. Yeah. And
we set all our gear up and just stayed there for a week and recorded on our own gear with just three of us in the place and
we just lived there for a whole week.
Somewhere.
Some beer, yeah. There was a big fireplace, and we would just we would just play and record whenever we felt like it. Sometimes late at night, sometimes in the middle of the day. It was a great experience. It's the first time I'd had that experience of just spending a whole week with your mates playing music and thinking about nothing else at all. It's just, let's get this album done. And of course, you had the additional task of doing all the recording as well as playing at the end of the day. Yeah. So, and then of course we made this film at Sands. Well, how did you find Sands? What was that involved? Was you doing some work for them?
I worked for them at the beginning of 2000 on a film. I was their sound recordist for a film they made.
Right.
So I was working for a year or so there. That was my 9 to 5 job. So, but it was also a great space. So when we stopped filming there, they said I could do stuff. So I think we did a photo session. We recorded a demo there, and we did a photo session there, and then we did the video, I think, as well.
And do you remember when this was? Because I can't believe it. It's probably nearly 20 years ago, is it?
I should think it was 2002, 2003, perhaps.
This is so spooky because
it was around that time, I think.
I've not been back since, and I was there today in that same room making a film with the Allison's band. It's exactly that. I walked straight in. It's really spooky. Anyway, let's play this video. So this is a track from the album, which is Moonlight Express is the album. And this is a promo video we made of one of the tracks. So the track, the
director was Joanna Callahan.
Joanna Callahan, well done. And Stew My String, Swinging Blue, which is one of Victor's tunes, wasn't it?
That's right.
Here we go, Swinging Blue. Yeah, that was Swinging Blue from the album Moonlight Express from the trio Terza featuring my guest Adrian Zolotuhin, myself, and the late great Victor Unakovsky, who's just simply a marvel, an absolute marvel on the guitar, and just incredible to be around and play with, who we dearly miss. And so yeah, it's nice to play that. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your composing work that you do, and you've had some commissions, I know, and we're going to play a track from the second album from the band, which features a string orchestra as well with the band. It was a concerto, wasn't it? That and featuring on piano Howard Moody, who was on the show a few weeks back. So I thought that would be a nice little link there to connect them together. Yeah. So. Now, I might have mixed this up, but was it? So Victor got commissioned to write a concerto for the orchestra, and he got us in on it. Is that right?
That's right. Well, as I understand it,
it's going back a little while, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long time. Victor was great mates with Howard Moody, who you interviewed a little while ago, and they'd been in a kind of world music band. It might have been called the One World Band, I think, which was doing various things, and they'd all turn up with different instruments and doing various things. I think that's their connection. I could be wrong. And Howard got chatting with Victor and said, "Do you want to write a piece for my little band, which was called Serum Orchestra?" Sort of an orchestra based in Salisbury, and it was I think at that time they were kind of they were a chamber orchestra, and featuring kind of aiming for the Baroque.
Yeah, because there was a harpsichord in there, wasn't there? I remember that.
There was a harpsichord, and so Howard organised Victor to do this piece, and Victor said, "Well, can I write it for me and my band?" So it was in the height of sort of Terza doing our thing.
Yeah. Well, Howard knew us because we'd
already met him. Exactly.
Worked with Howard, and Howard loved the band, and he thought that was a great idea because he's a genius and he loves mixing things up. And that
was the first thing we did with Howard. I think Howard had seen us at a gig.
No, I think this is getting mixed up because I worked with me and Victor. I think had worked in the pit. We'd done some things with Howard with the kids. I remember doing a show with Ian. Is it Ian McMillan, the poet? And there was like 200 kids on the stage, and Howard was conducting. It was down at the Anvil, and
was that before?
I think that was before the concerto.
Okay. Well,
so anyway, the planets, basically the worlds were colliding, the planets aligned, and Howard managed to hook us all up, didn't he? Basically, he kind of put it all together, and because Howard loved Victor, he really did, and we often talk about Victor, so he got him to write this piece. But then what we did is we built an album around that, right? Because the concerto was half an hour, whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, to make an album out of it, Howard and Serum Orchestra managed to find a budget to make an album, and we needed to find a bit more material to make a whole CD. So we, by that point, Stew My Strings had become an orchestral piece.
I remember playing that with the orchestra.
So that was sort of on the list, and we'd done that with Serum Orchestra at one or two gigs, so that was on the list. So we needed to write a few more things. Victor wrote a piece called Trio that he for Howard,
which we played. That was on the show. Yeah. Really, it was in 5 and something, wasn't it? It's quite, it's a lovely piece. I played that a few weeks ago on Howard's show. If you want to check that out, folks. So.
And then Butterflies, we'd started playing with the band, and
that's right.
I did an arrangement to include piano, and so Howard played piano on that.
Right. And that's how this one came about.
Didn't have the strings, but did have some lovely piano.
Yeah. So okay. So this is a quartet piece. So this is the trio. It's you, me, and Victor with Howard on the piano as well. But it's your composition.
Yeah, and that's if I'm possibly I'm possibly playing bass as well as rhythm guitar.
There's a bit of overdubbing. I think there's some percussion as well. I did on it as well.
I think we did it all in bits, actually, in a sort of precursor of this lockdown method.
Yeah, you stuck it all together in your studio. Incredible.
Yeah, we would have done bits and pieces here and there, and a lot in this very space. Through that door, Victor was that door.
Oh. And then that led to you getting a commission to write for the orchestra as well, right? Which was that the travelogue piece that you did?
Yeah.
And so that was that's like a world music thing featuring, because you're playing all your lovely different string instruments on that one, aren't you?
I think I decided to aim it for something quite exotic. I was quite interested about the sort of the story of the Romanis traveling around Europe, coming from India and traveling around Europe and going to different places. So this idea of travel and the touch of the exotic in the music. And I thought it probably needs something more exotic sounding than the instruments I've got. So I went on eBay and I bought myself a Saz. And then I went on YouTube and learned how to play it. And so I didn't learn how to play it properly, but at least I think I might.
You did a very good job of it. Yeah, it sounded great.
Made up version of Saz playing, so that was me getting a Saz, and that's the piece with the Saz on it has gone on to have a bit of a life. We play it with Budapest Cafe Orchestra.
Oh, fantastic! So which is nice. Because Travelogue didn't get recorded, did it? With the full thing, as I recall, it was just a concert.
No,
we did
not yet. But I'm sort of reviving bits of it.
Okay, great.
Not the whole piece, but bits of it are occasionally appearing in my gigs.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. Well, look, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's play a bit of let's play Butterflies. So this is from the second Terza Rima album. It's called In the Breeze. And this is from 2007, and the main feature on that album is the concerto with the full orchestra. If people want to check that out, but this was some of the additional tracks we recorded for the album, and this is your composition, and it's called Butterflies. And we got some pictures, which there's some pictures here of which I know you'll remember very well. When we toured in Russia, we went on tour, didn't we? And we played. We backed a singer, didn't we? Which Victor got. I don't know. I can't remember how most of these things came about. I probably shouldn't know.
I know. It's better not to know.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a lovely tour. We played in London as well. We played some big concert halls. We played a massive couple of gigs out in Russia. We did the Barbican. We did the QEH. Was it, or was it the festival?
And the
QEH. It was the QEH.
But this the venue we played in St. Petersburg was called Bolshoi Koncertny Zal, which means big concert hall.
It was a big concert hall. It was bloody massive. It was about 4 times the Barbican, wasn't it? I remember looking at that row of seats. Incredible.
And the sound of the applause was quite good because it sort of went
yeah.
Like that. Amazing sound.
Yeah, and then there's some more pictures of us doing some little gigs with the trio. You've also got some pictures of the Budapest Cafe Orchestra, who we're going to hear next. So this is our little slide montage because the rest of the things are video. So here we go. This is Butterflies. hope you're enjoying the show. I just want to take a moment to tell you about a new way that you can help support me do this, and that is through patreon.com. That's right, I've got an account now, so the link's below here, patreon.com Buster Birch, and if you go along to there, you can now make donations by Visa credit card, so you don't have to use PayPal if you don't want to do that. And the advantage of Patreon is that once you do it once, it will automatically deduct on a per show basis. So instead of having to fill in the forms every week, if you want to make a regular donation, then that will just automatically deduct straight to your credit card each per show. And that is hugely helpful to me, because it means I know that I've got a certain amount coming in every time I do a show, and that really helps me plan ahead and keeps the viable sustainability of the show going. There's 2 levels of sponsorship. There's my silver and gold membership. All of my Patreon supporters will get a big thank you personally from me live on the show, and the gold member sponsors will get an additional Spotify playlist which will be sent to you each week. It's something that I'm putting together. It's personally curated by me and will feature lots more albums by the guest artists each week. So it's a great opportunity to get to know this music much better. If you're really enjoying the show and you like the little tasters that you're hearing, that's a great way to get to know this music even more and enjoy in full comfort the full sound of the full albums. Thanks very much. Back to the show. Yes, back to the show. My guest this evening is Adrian Zolotuhin. And before we carry on, I'll just say hello to a few more people in the chat box. Joining us this evening, Phil Hartley. Hello, mate. Good to see you in there.
Hi, Phil.
Yeah, another super duper musician and engineer from the old days. Barry's here. Liz has asked about our worst ever gig, and I think there's a whole show on that. So I think we'll move on swiftly from that. Sally's here.
Barry was there, wasn't he?
Barry was on it, yeah. But ask Barry, Liz. Nick Blake says very nice, great. Alfie Beston in the house. Hey, Alfie. Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to seeing your new video. And Nick and yeah, it's great. Lee Clark is enjoying it. As well, Lee. And Steve and Lucy, excellent show. Thank you guys, it's great. It's good to know you're out there and people are tuning in. So yeah, I thought we'd move on to more current events, which is a band that you've been working with for a few years now, and you've been touring all over the place, up and down the country. I know you go to all these big mega tours. We go to the Outer Hebrides and places like that, don't you, all around the top of Scotland and everything.
We do. When bands say they tour the UK, I bet they don't mean as far as us, because we have done gigs in Orkney and the Outer Hebrides and Jersey.
Literally,
so, we really do our best to cover the whole.
Nothing in London, just.
Well, they don't.
That's too easy, too near. Yeah, you can't play unless you've done 500 miles on the motorway. Yeah. No, you guys are real road warriors, and it's fantastic because you take your music out there, and I've done a little bit of this as well. With touring around, and there's nothing quite like going to play in a village hall somewhere where they've all been waiting for you. And it's packed, and it's a Saturday night, and the whole village have turned out, and you can't. And then you stay in the people's houses. They put you up sometimes and things like this, don't you? And it's just fantastic, isn't it? That whole sense of community, I think, and the fact that what music can do, it can bring people together in that way, and to do it with your own original music as well is really something special, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been the very ethos of the Budapest Cafe Orchestra was. We're a band that plays in village halls and tries to raise the roof every night playing. I think the original, I think there's a touch of the suggestion in the name. It was originally started as a band playing Balkan music, Hungarian, Romanian, and I'm in the second incarnation of the band.
Right.
The first incarnation was in the 2000s. I think, 90s. I apologise. 90s, and they were kind of on my radar. I knew they were there.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
And in fact, as some of them played at Zamoyski, the Polish restaurant I mentioned earlier, on different from me and Victor. So we kind of we knew each other.
Yeah.
And when the band reformed in 2009. I was asked to join, and we haven't looked back. It's been basically the same lineup since then.
You've been doing it since 2009. Is it as long as that? Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I know it was a few years. Crikey, the time flies, doesn't it? And it's a great. And so we should name check you. Christian Garrick, of course, is a violinist. Is he the band leader? How does that kind of? Yeah, right. He's the boss.
He's I mean, he's second only to you in terms of work ethic. Buster. He's an absolute. He's a machine as far as getting things going is concerned, and a musician. I mean,
he's a phenomenal musician. Yeah, wonderful violinist.
It's a privilege to be sitting next to him, let alone in the audience.
Well, I'm sure he could have asked anyone, mate, and you're the man for the job. So that's.
Well, Etheridge and Paricelli just must have not been available.
And we have Eddie Hessian on the accordion, fantastic accordion player, who's again, that's a real feature of the group, isn't it? It's a real kind of feature of the sound of the group, I think, as well, with what you do. And he's a real virtuoso, isn't he? As we'll hear in a minute.
Another monster,
yeah. And Kelvin Cantlon on bass. Yeah. And so that's sorry.
And Kelly. Well, Kelly was in the original incarnation of the BCO. And as well as he made the Stew My Strings video for me as well. Right. So he's a sort of multi-talented guy, and he was he's got a great rock and roll history as well. He was in one of the versions of Jimmy James and the Vagabonds in that sort of Northern soul band. So he's been, he's got all these rock and roll stories that he regales us with when we're on tour.
And there's something about the sound. I mean, the accordion, I can imagine, like that's a very strong flavour that brings, but there's something about the sound of the strings as well. So it's violin, guitar, and string bass, and that resonance of all those strings. My first experience was when we, what we talked about with Terza when we played where we had the string quartets and then the large orchestra as well. And there's something about guitars with like proper string instruments as well that fit together, that there's, I mean, maybe it's a bit obvious, but it's just something it never really occurred to me until I heard it. And I was like, wow, that's a very particular sound, isn't it? Have you ever thought about that? Is that something that kind of...
I think I like to think of the sound of the Budapest Cafe Orchestra as being quite complementary. We cover different things, the sort of the padding and the crispness of the guitar and the strident sort of strong lead on the violin. But I think another great thing that this band has is three out of the four members can play the tune, which is actually quite rare, and we can play this quite very strongly. And so we do that a lot in the band. The melodies move around between myself and Eddie and Chris. And we can accompany each other. We're basically acoustic. I tend to plug in because I can't get quite as loud as the accordion and the violin, so I plug in my instruments just to bring them up to that volume when I need the sort of.
So push. Does Chris use an amp, or does he just acoustic?
No, it's acoustic.
Yeah, because they can get quite loud, those violins, can't they, when they're really going for it? And
we really use the dynamics as well, the natural dynamics. And I in an ideal world, we play without a PA even in a lot of venues.
Which makes it perfect for those sort of venues, doesn't it? Barry's saying that guitars are proper string instruments, of course. Sorry, mate, I didn't mean that. I just meant,
a few nerves there, Buster.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I wouldn't be the first time. I mean, yeah, I've hit an Alan Partridge moment. I usually do at least one every week on this show. But I've worked with a lot of guitarists separately, and then I've played in a few orchestras, and you don't often. I mean, of course, it's not that unusual, but it just struck me as you don't often see guitars with string orchestras or string quartets, and there's something about the natural kind of sonority of the sound. I think that they do complement each other very well. Of course, fiddle and guitar as duo is very common as well, isn't it? With we had John Etheridge on the show, and he works with Chris as well in a duo, and but so of course the other thing is with the accordion and guitar are both chordal instruments. So you've got 3 melody instruments, like you say, throwing the melodies around, and you've got 2 chordal instruments.
Well, I mean, Chris can play chords as well.
Oh, here we go.
You know, if we have to pay him a little bit extra if he plays
double stopping, yeah.
But it's you know, he will. You know,
so you've got this, you know, it's like a mini orchestra basically, isn't it? And that gives you a lot of scope of things you can do. So there's and there's something that you do quite a lot, which is really cool, isn't it? You'll take something like a very famous bit of classical music, and then do a version of it, which we're going to hear, which is what you've done on this.
We prefer to think of it as sort of discovering the essence of what the composer originally meant.
Okay, go on. So what's the story is that he wrote this originally for accordion.
Yeah, I mean you would, wouldn't you? I think, and then later on, you know, they couldn't find a player of the right caliber.
He couldn't get an accordion.
Having to do it on the piano,
right?
I think.
So that's the story. So this is Rachmaninoff.
Yeah.
And so what we've discovered tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this is a first. You may not be aware of this, but apparently he originally wrote the concerto for accordion, and he couldn't find anyone good enough as good as Eddie to play it. So that's why he ended up sticking it on the piano. Is that right? I didn't know
that's
that.
the essence of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and what you've done is you've resurrected it in its original format for accordion, which is brilliant. Now, the other thing that you guys do is you make these wonderful videos as well. And is that Kelly that does the videos?
He does. Yeah, he's the driving force. He's a man of great talent.
And they are great. And there are more, ladies and gentlemen. So do get on YouTube and look up the Budapest Cafe Orchestra and check out some of their other works, which is what they are. They're great works, and we're going to watch one now. This is the Squeezebox Concerto in C minor, that little known concerto by Rachmaninoff, and this is the Budapest Cafe Orchestra. It features Christian Garrick on violin, Adrian Zolotuhin on guitar, Eddie Hession on accordion, and Kelvin Cantlon on the bass. And do not adjust your sets at the beginning. This is all part of the show.
Welcome back to Radio High Culture. Now, a rare recording of Rachmaninoff's second accordion concerto in C minor with the new Budapest Cafe Orchestra led by Christian Garrick. The soloist is Eddie Hession.
Wonderful. Wonderful. How about that, folks? Yeah, absolute virtuosic playing. Great fun and, wonderful music. If you get a chance to see the band, then do. They're really wonderful live as well. So, the Budapest Cafe Orchestra. Great. I can see why you've been doing this for so long, mate. It must be a great laugh you guys have on the road as well. So we're going to move on a bit now to your teaching work and one particular project that you have, which I think is absolutely marvellous, which is the Imperial Balalaika Orchestra of Overton.
Yes. Yeah, I think we thought we'd go for a sort of modest and subtle title for this thing.
And I think this is brilliant because these are your students that you teach. You've got a bunch of
in the local area.
Where you live.
I have I've been teaching in my locality for about 15 years, and every so often I do a workshop where I do rock and pop or songwriting or something like that, sort of intensive week for the kids, and from time to time I foist exotic instruments on them, like so we might have a morning of playing balalaika.
Brilliant.
And that has become a bigger part of my workshops, and after one particular summer workshop we sort of kept it going. We sort of started having regular rehearsals and eventually got round to sort of performing in the local church fetes and so on. So this is now the group that we're going to see as the second incarnation of the Imperial Balalaika Orchestra of Overton. The first lot, a bit like the young boy in Puff the Magic Dragon, they got too old for the magic of the balalaika. But hopefully this current lot, they seem to be stayers, so we'll see. I hope.
Well, it's great, isn't it? I mean, I always think that. I mean, with the jazz school I run, and sometimes you see them, they're very small. They come in and they get good, and then they go off and do other things, and it's great. It's like they fly, don't they? They've had their little fledglings, and then they develop as musicians, and then they fly, and it's great. But what I think is really special about this is that you're maintaining and sharing your Russian cultural kind of roots, if you like, and there's nothing better than music to do that. And I think this is the true one of the true powers of music, is that we forget with popular culture music. Like music is it's real culture, isn't it? It's heritage, it's culture, and there's a great tradition, and it's people's lives. It's not just some 3-minute pop song, is it? And you're keeping that spirit going, and I'm sure your dad would be very proud of that. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. Thank you.
No, it's really nice to be to share a bit of this stuff, because I mean you or me or all the musicians out there, we've gleaned all this stuff over the years, and it's a shame to just keep it to yourself. You want to share it with other people a little bit as well,
but also
not just in a concert stage, but in a kind of more
in a community way, which is what it should be. Yeah, it's great. But I think also, kids aren't daft. They can smell it on you, and what they're getting from you, they can sense from you, I'm sure, that. No, I mean, they can smell when somebody's not the real thing, and what they can see in you is that it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, isn't it? They're getting this is not just some sort of novelty little project they're doing. This is the genuine article that they're lucky to have handed down to them directly through your dad, through you, and this is the real thing, isn't it? And what a great experience for them to have. What a great opportunity in a fairly rural sort of local village where you are now, which is that's a really beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a pleasure to be able to do it.
Well, let's hear a bit.
Nice. So I've got all these instruments around the house.
Yeah, nice, and you let these kids play them. Yeah. And so we're going to play a bit of proper. I mean, now there's a story about this tune, isn't there? Because most people will hear this and they instantly think of Christmas, don't they? But actually, it's not what it's from, is it? This is Prokofiev and the Troika, and it's from from a movie. He wrote a movie score.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and say it. Go on. Can you say
Kijé.
Kijé?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this we found it. It's actually, you can find it on YouTube. The film. There's sort of, it's very black and white. Literally, there's no grey. It's just black and white. This film, and this we have our balalaika rehearsals online at the moment. If you can imagine, sort of large Zoom meetings of balalaikas. We managed to find the film, and the moment when this piece first appears is two drunk soldiers sort of staggering out of the pub, and they sing, and they fall into the back of the troika, and the horses go, and it's do 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 do, and the music carries on. So it's quite fun. We don't do the drunk bit though; that would be very irresponsible.
Yeah, so this is from a movie from 1934. I looked that up, and most people think this is much older, but it's done in a previous style, wasn't it? He was kind of known for writing in that kind of, I guess, earlier kind of style of traditional kind of Russian kind of.
That's a whole new show. If you
yeah. And I'm on very thin ice there. Yeah, I can talk about jazz, but I'm on thin ice with this. So let's watch a bit of this. So this is your group of children that you teach, the Imperial Balalaika Orchestra of Overton, playing Prokofiev's Troika. Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I thought we'd enjoy a little taste of that, and yeah, that's wonderful, mate. I think that's just a really beautiful thing that you're doing there with those children, and I'm sure they appreciate it. And you know, if you do things, I think those things, the ripples of that can run far. Actually, I think Phil says he can play the triangle as long as you don't show his face.
We always need more triangle players, Phil.
Yeah. Hey, don't knock the triangle. I had 10 days in, where was it we went? Somewhere nice. Somewhere in the Indian Ocean. playing a triangle. Yeah, I did four gigs on a triangle, and begins with an S, so it's gone blank anyway. So yeah, so it's the time's marching on, but we've got one more track. We're going to play out on a track, and but I just want to say thanks to everybody that's tuned in. It's been great, and it's nice to see everybody, and thanks for coming along and sharing your music, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being such a kind and generous host.
Well, we're not quite done yet, but I thought, what we could do is just we've got a very special world premiere on the show. It's nice to have an exclusive, but I don't always get a world premiere. And you very kindly made a track for us, which has never been shown before, and which you only just finished the other night doing. Is that right? You've made just for us.
A lot of Midnight Oil, a lot of very recent Midnight Oil.
Which is amazing that you would do that. I really appreciate it. It's absolutely wonderful. So this is a YouTube video that you've put together. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this piece?
Well, just harking back to our trio that we had before, we had, the first album of Terza Rima was called Moonlight Express, and the title track was a piece by Victor that kind of summoned up the vision of a train journey through Siberia in the snow and the moonlight, and this is kind of in some ways an answer to that. I quite like writing pieces with an idea of a picture in mind. So the picture I have is a kind of the desert version of that. So there's apparently you can get a sleeper train from, I think, Fez or Casablanca to Marrakesh. So I thought that would be a good title. And I've tried. It's got a touch of the exotic with the saz, and the percussion that I played, and a bit of groove as well. I like to groove, and you might see me playing drums even. You never know.
It's very good. It's some lovely percussion on there, and you play it beautifully. And the saz, for people watching who may not know what a saz is, tell us a bit about that one. What's that one? It's the one with very long necks, isn't it?
Can you get the edges? Hang on, I'll move back.
Oh no, because you're cropped in.
It's very, very big. It's very tall. I see. That's better, isn't it? Right? Yeah.
They're not. They won't. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's got a really long, thin neck, and it's got it's quite a light coloured, like a light wood sort of veneer finish to it.
Yeah, and this it's originally an acoustic instrument, a teardrop shaped, possibly originally made of a gourd, with a gourd and a kind of broom handle, right. And that might be the sort of instrument that was a precursor of guitar and coming through Spain, or the balalaika going from the Far East into Russia. So the instruments that shape are kind of all around North Africa and Turkey in particular, but sort of it's a shape that people will recognise, I think, from those parts of the world.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realise that. So that shape of the body of the guitar is particular to a certain region of going way back. And the triangle thing, that's purely Russian, is it? Or kind of that kind of over that way?
I think they're a big. If you search on the internet, there are big sort of family trees of how various instruments became various other instruments, and it's. I think things that look like guitars, lutes, and etc. I think started probably somewhere in the Middle East, or maybe even India. Excuse me.
Wow, amazing.
But this one's an electro saz. So this has got guitar pickups, and I put it through a sort of monster, just out of picture. There's a massive guitar.
So you can amp it up. You can plug it into an amp. This thing, yeah.
And
it's got a real kind of twangy sound, doesn't it? That's what they're listening out for. That kind of real strummy thing. So Night Train to Marrakesh is this track, and you've kindly played it for us. And what you're going to do is make the link available, isn't it? Once this show's over, I think. And speaking of which, my patrons, I must say, I don't think I've set the Patreon up for tonight. I'll have to do it when I finish. I'm sorry, I've had a hell of a week, and so I'll try. They might be a bit late tonight, my patrons. Talking of links, so but we can put the link in the. I'll put the link below for this video.
It'll be the same link as you already have, but I'll make it public as well.
Oh, I see. It's not switched on yet because you wanted to premiere it here. Okay, fantastic. So, well, there we go, folks, and. Yeah, well, it's once again, it's flown past, and thanks for coming on the show, mate. It's lovely to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And I look forward when we can play again soon, whenever that will be. And
please, soon.
Yeah, I think it won't be much longer now. We're nearly there, aren't we? We just got to hang on a bit longer. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's great to see you, and thanks for all your comments in the chat box. Much appreciated. Next week I've got the great Steve Melling, a fantastic piano player who's backed many of the stars of British jazz over the last 20 and 30 years. Did a lot of work with Peter King in particular, and so I'm sure we're going to hear some great stories from him and some great music. So looking forward to that. I've just literally booked up about another half a dozen guests, so I'll be updating the website over the weekend, so do check back there. The links here, and again, if you did enjoy the music and you did enjoy the show tonight, folks, please consider a donation. It's just about all we got to keep us going at the moment, and all the donations are split. We share them 50-50 with the guests, and they're much appreciated. So once again, thanks everybody, take care of yourselves, and we'll leave you with this world premiere Night Train to Marrakesh, written, composed, produced, recorded and performed, all instruments, by my very wonderful guest tonight, Mr. Adrian Zolotuhin. Thanks, mate. Take care. Good night. See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.